This week's parsha is the most important parsha in the entire Torah. You may ask, why is this week's parsha the most important in the entire Torah? Well, let me tell you. Parashah Chayei Sarah covers the death of Sarah, the first plot of land purchased in Israel, an insight into how negotiation was done at that time, the search for a wife for Isaac, meeting Lavan, meeting Rebekah, Isaac and Rebekah getting married, Abraham remarrying and having 6 more kids. Everyone forgets about them. Abraham's death and burial by Isaac and Ishmael and the family plot that Abraham bought for Sarah at the start of this week's parsha. But none of that is why this is the most important parsha in the entire Torah. The reason this is the most important parsha in the entire Torah is because it teaches us 2 important lessons about death and relationships. Sarah's death at the opening of this week's parsha is really the first time death is talked about in the entire Torah. Of course, death is mentioned before this. Adam and Eve brought death into the world. Every recorded genealogy ends with, and he died. Everyone dies in the flood. But those are all just recorded as facts. This is the first time we see how people react to the death of a loved one. And how did Abraham react? Well, we see a few things. First, it says, Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and weep for her. Then, Abraham makes the necessary arrangements. Finally, Abraham buries her. We also see how Isaac reacts. He's clearly in mourning because later in the parsha we read how when he marries Rebekah, he's comforted after the death of his mother. Of course, none of that seems unusual to us. First, we react to the news, we mourn, we cry, we tear our clothing. Then, out of love and respect for the dead, we need to make the necessary arrangements. So important is this phase that we're exempt from the obligation of many mitzvot, so we can get this done quickly and bury our dead. Then, we seek the comfort of others to help reintegrate into our new reality. This is the Jewish way of dealing with death, and it comes directly from this week's parsha. The death of Sarah is also an inflection point in the entire narrative. The story very much moves on from Abraham at this point, which is surprising, given that Abraham lives many decades after Sarah's death. Of course, he's still in the story this week, but the narrative is no longer about him. It's about what he does to set up the next generation. Why the pivot? Why don't we hear more about the amazing things that a man like Abraham must have accomplished in those many decades? Perhaps it's because the story was never about Abraham and his mission. It was about the mission of the covenantal couple of Abraham and Sarah. Without Sarah, that covenantal couple no longer exists. The ideas of Judaism are not something one person can ever perpetuate. The ideals require family. That was the Toldot of Terach, to transmit to the next generation. So with the death of one half of the covenantal couple, the story has to move to the next generation and the creation of the next covenantal couple. Abraham knew this, which is why we see all of Abraham's actions this week being about setting things up for the story to continue with the next couple, Isaac and Rebekah. Our story is not a story about individuals, it's a story about family. That's one of the reasons why this is the most important parsha in the Torah. But the other reason is that the most important piece of Torah is whatever piece of Torah you have in front of you right now. Shabbat Shalom and Am Yisroel Chai.